When I was young, I remember looking at my godfather's face. He was a deacon at St. John's, still a deacon at St. John's. Looking at his face as he lifted up the chalice and the paten, when the priest says, "Thine own of thine own, we offer unto thee." And this is before the consecration of the gifts. And his face was pale and he was shaking. This is the proper attitude about the gifts. And this is before the consecration. Today we just had a couple of incidents. Kids, parents, when you send your kids, they have to, there's one purpose to every action we take during communion, which is to make sure that the body and blood of Christ are received completely into our mouths and then into our bodies. Okay? Everything is to facilitate that. So, open your mouth all the way. There's no technique to it. You just open your mouth wide enough that the spoon can fit into it without anything getting pushed off of the spoon. I'll leave that there for now, and I'll say it again later. It's the Sunday of the Prodigal Son. Which is all of us sinners in the church. All of us who have been baptized, who are children by adoption of the Most High God. And children indeed, more so through the incarnation and death and resurrection of his Son, into which we are baptized. We see how God operates here. And anyone who ever has questioned, why does God allow blank, whatever blank might be, the answer is here. It's about the whole human race, but specifically for the Orthodox Church and for everybody hearing it who's in the Orthodox Church, it's about those of us who have been baptized. The Lord is going to let us make our choices. And he's going to give us the things we ask for, even if doing so is going to make our life miserable. So that through that we can achieve salvation. Through having hit the depths, having awoken amongst the pigs and still starving. And we learn something else. We learn that each of us has an inheritance. But we also learn that if we're his sons, if we're his children, and we're his faithful servants, he's faithful to us. As he said to the older son, everything that I have is thine. I'm moving into some strange phase of my Orthodox life where things that before I took for granted, I now understand a little better, but the words sound exactly the same. There was sort of anyway, there's an old football commentator, football player and coach named John Madden, who was funny because he would often say things like, the key to winning football games is touchdowns. To score, you got to get the ball across the end zone. Like, things like that, where you'd hear him and you think that's, of course. But then I thought about it later as I lived a little bit of life, and I realized this is a man who spent his entire life in football. So when he says that, it maybe doesn't mean the same thing inside of his head as it does to us when we hear it. When he says you got to get the ball across the end zone, he's thinking in X's and O's and all the things you have to do to actually get the ball across. And so when we hear these things and we hear we're the children of God and we see the providence of God in this parable where he gives his prodigal son everything he asks for, and to his other son who complained, they both have it wrong. Their attitudes are wrong the whole way through. Even though they in their own, each their own way, they stumble into a right choice. The good son, he just did what he was supposed to do. It seems to have not occurred to him to do otherwise. And also, it seems never to have occurred to him to ask his father for anything. It seems to come naturally to him to do the right thing. Or at least to be a good servant of his father. But it's almost as though the other son, the good son, forgot that he was a son. And they both forgot. And they both forgot what kind of a man their father is. The prodigal, after wasting all of his father's money, or really, that's not right. His father has no lack. He wasted all the money his father divided to him. He wasted his inheritance, which is us and our lives. That's what that is. But then he despairs wrongfully when he says, I'll go back and live as a servant. And he's practicing all of his whole speech to his father, is practicing how he's going to get away. Even then, he's thinking of doing the wrong thing. He's thinking of dissembling and lying. I'm going to pretend to be someone I'm not. And he's only thinking of his own life. He's only thinking of comfort. And God knows that. The Father knows that too. He'll use whatever to save us, even our weakness. So he knew that his son would begin to appreciate his father only after experiencing privation. And the other one had to learn a lesson as well about sonship, about remembering the goodness of his father. And what do we see the other son say also? Thou never gavest me a kid that I might make merry with my friends. And it's so similar to our prayer life, actually. We know what we want, we know what we need. Why don't we ask for it? I sit around knowing what my problems are, knowing that God knows, and wondering why he doesn't do something about it. Knowing that God is omniscient is not the same as praying to God for help. That's the same as sitting around expecting that. That's the same as entitlement. As I saw one judge say it on a YouTube channel, you'd have to think you're emperor of the world to act like that. To sit around and think that it's somebody else's job to notice what you need and to hand it to you. And that's what we all think. That's what we all think at some point or another. We think we're emperor of the world. We think that because we are made in God's image, and our fallen nature, even though it's fallen, has never forgotten what our inheritance is. And so that part of us that feels entitled and everything and wonders why God doesn't just give us everything we want, even though he already has, is the part that that remembers our destiny, our purpose, which is indeed a royal one. But we've got it all twisted up. And it's easy to do so. And we have to remember who our God is, who our Father is. Because, and it's not, thank God, it's not hard to remember, because the church provides us with this Sunday and all the other lives of the saints and feasts of the church and our own Orthodox lives, which show this forth truly. Please stop. Come on. So it's complicated, but at the same time extremely simple. We can't sit around cooking up our own crazy schemes, finding out what kind of trouble we're in, and then judging ourselves, and coming up with our own plan. This is another thing about the prodigal's story here. I mean, it's not grossly mistaken in that he's at least making his way back home, but he's just wrong the whole way through. We have to remember that he's called us sons, and that the Lord has called us friends, and has told us, which of you, if your son asks for bread, will he give him a stone? Our Father in heaven is greater than every greatest father on earth that's ever lived. So let's continue to ask for all the things we need, all the things we want even. Of course, the best thing to ask for is for God's will to be done. But I don't want to encourage that, actually, because I think that's in a lot of people's minds, and my own included, that's just one step away from sitting around waiting for him to do stuff. It's like the Madden thing again. It's, yes, of course we should pray for God's will. But are you actually asking him to do his will? Or are you just waiting around for him to, and hoping that his will coincides with your comfort? That's what I'm doing. So instead, we need to just ask. We have to get there. You have to get to the point where you achieve the wisdom of understanding we have to ask for God's will. But it's okay to ask for the things you want and need. It's okay to ask for that. It's not selfish. Because you're asking God, which you can only do from a position of humility. Now, if he says no and you start getting angry at him, then that's another matter. Then he'll handle that accordingly. Like he did, though, not harshly, but with the older son. But all good things come from him, and all good things, as he said to us, you've been with me. He's speaking, really speaking to the church here, because you have been with me. That's what that means. And we need to remember that our God is not merciless. We need to remember that also when we see injustices in the world and we think that people ought to be punished and everything. They will be. But not by me, not by you, and probably not in our sight. And we should be careful what we wish for. Do we wish to be punished in the sight of men harshly for everything we've done? Not me. So instead, let's return to repentance. Let's return to the Father. Let's go running down the road, not walking down the road slowly as we cook up our weird plan to persuade our Father to take us back as a servant. Just go back humbly, and if we run, we'll get there faster, because He's running out to meet us. Amen. The blessing of the Lord be upon you through His grace and love for mankind.